Commissioner, I've got some questions about attempts by local councils to restrict signage at polling places during the federal election. The two particular examples that I'm most familiar with are Melton Council and Burandara Council in Melbourne. There may well be others, but these are the ones that have been brought to my attention. And as you may be aware, I've made some FOI applications, including to the AEC, in relation to this. For your assistance, Lex 9503 is the FOI request I made to the AEC, and I have that here, and that can be provided to you or tabled if that's helpful. Seeking your correspondence to the City of Melton. Yeah. Some documents were provided, but some weren't, and I've sought internal review, which is Lex 9702. Do you have any update on that internal review?
It actually hit my inbox this afternoon as I was preparing for
timely
estimates, Senator. And I've had a quick glance at it, and I think broadly we'll be able to accommodate largely what you're looking for here. There might be one or two minor exceptions, but I think you'll be largely comfortable with our response.
Great. Thank you. Well, that's a good start, and I'll look forward to that when that can be provided. In those FOI documents, it refers to a templated lease, which the AEC confirmed in an email to Melton Council, which is the same one the AEC used with this pre-poll centre. What I want to understand is whether or not there's a condition of the lease or a venue hire agreement for a polling venue that political parties' signage would be freely permitted.
Thanks, Senator. We have a number of templates that we use for this process because, as you would appreciate, we're trying to sign 7,000 plus leases in a very short period of time. So we try and collate them into schools and those sorts of things. I might ask the Acting Chief Legal Officer to provide a response to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr Will Mueller, Acting Chief Legal Officer. There's not an explicit provision relating to freely placing signage. The number of premises that the AEC is looking to hire during an electoral event is high, and there are two types. There are the arrangements with say schools or community organisations, and then private licence agreements. And so negotiating across, I think, in relation to those private licence agreements, about 800 to 900, I think, but I might need to that's to the extent of my knowledge. It's important that we're able to kind of action them fairly quickly during the writ-to-writ period, and so no explicit provision.
Okay. I mean, well, there's obviously the implied freedom of political communication, which we may get to
Correct.
in a moment, but it's particularly pertinent to the City of Melton issue because I've also made an FOI to them in relation to the Caroline Springs pre-poll booth. It really demonstrates the extraordinary lengths that Melton City Council and its officers went to restrict signage at that venue. And helpfully there's even body cam footage of a Melton Council officer, which was released under FOI, where they even impounded an AEC A-frame as part of their attempts to restrict signage at the venue, which is pretty special. One internal message, and I'll table this as well, this is extract number 1 from the FOI, so that you've got access to that, but one text message between senior Melton Council officers sent on the 24th of April says, "I thought I'd give you a heads up re an issue with some electoral signage at the CS Scouts Hall. The candidate signage is very large and on council land. The site is being used by the AEC without council knowledge or consent, as far as I can tell on reasonable inquiries to those in the organisation who would have dealt with this." So, did the AEC use this site without council knowledge or consent?
Well, I don't know that I'd characterise it that way, Senator. I have to say, I don't have 100% knowledge of this particular instance.
Yeah.
My sense is, and I'm happy to be corrected by my colleagues, that we engage with who we believe are the owners, occupiers of premises in good faith, and we engage with those that we believe are in a position of authority to sign the lease. This sounds like one of those rare instances, and I would say it would be rare because I'm not familiar with too many others, where perhaps they did not have the authority to sign the lease, and then it's become come to the attention of the Melton City Council, and they have objected and started to revoke or tried to determine the circumstances of a lease. So it sounds to me like either our inquiries weren't deep and probing enough to determine whether they had the relevant authority, or the people that signed the lease believe they had the authority, but Melton City Council had a different view.
Right. So just confirming there's nothing in the lease about prohibiting or limiting the display of political party signage?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
So those FOI documents, further FOI documents, which I'll table now, which is extract number 2.
So can I just stop you there for a minute?
Yeah.
Senator Patterson, there are people's names all over this. We don't have a log number. We don't have any details. You're giving us just one copy to try and look at and share with the witnesses at the same time. Do you have any further detail?
I'll ask my
Just
staff
so that
to
we can-
email electronic copies to the Secretariat to assist, but these were documents released to me by the Council under FOI, and they didn't seek to redact the names.
Okay, that makes me nervous if we'll hand them over to you, but if you could just not use the names that are in these documents, I'd be very grateful until such time as we confirm.
Certainly.
Thank you.
So in that second extract, which I've just provided, there are Melton Council officers who believe that political signage is not allowed on council land, and I quote, unless it is stipulated in an agreement, which it obviously hasn't, which is from some Microsoft Teams messages sent on the 24th of April. When did the AEC realise that Melton Council would ban signage at the Scout Centre, and why didn't the AEC take action to prevent this?
I think we might need to come back to you on notice with that, Senator. I'm going to have to consider those documents and the information that we've got, and perhaps ask some additional questions about when we became aware. I'm assuming that that wasn't clear from the information we've provided so far in the FOI?
No.
Right. As you would appreciate, though, Senator, occasionally council bylaws are applied or interpreted in different parts of the country, and we have no influence or control over those bylaws, which is what obviously occurred, I think, also at Burandara when they applied their bylaws. So it's it can be a matter that arises from time to time.
Yeah, I'll come to that. Just for your background and to assist you providing the answer on notice, I'm advised that this venue has been used twice by the AEC as a polling centre in the voice referendum and in a federal election. So if it is the case that someone who didn't have authority to sign a lease with the AEC, that means they've done it twice, which would be pretty surprising. And I'm not aware of any issues about signage specifically in relation to the voice referendum, just the federal election.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll provide one further extract relating to Melton City Council from their FOI, which reveals an internal email between Melton Council officers, which was on the 2nd of May. It says, "Hi, names from the AEC rang today stating the Liberal Party have plastered their advertisement across 115 Tenterfield Drive again. When he questioned them, they presented the attached court order. However, it is not an order for the City of Melton. Photos were provided by AEC. We have not attended as yet, and I will await direction from yourself before doing so." Later, a council official says to another on Microsoft Teams, like, "Go up and say we're going to be removing signage. They will say injunction, blah, blah, and then we say we're unaware and therefore are proceeding as normal in 5 minutes." Why was the AEC reporting Liberal Party signage to Melton Council?
I don't have any knowledge of that at the moment, Senator. I'd have to see if we can understand why that may have been the case. I mean, it is.
I wonder, Mr. Pope, if you actually need a chance. There's quite a lot of documents here, valid questions, obviously, Senator Patterson, that might be worth being able to look at the material.
I'm happy to have a look at it, Senator. I mean, it may well be that if that is accurate, of course, and if that is what our staff may have done, it may well have been that they thought that the staff was on council land and might have been in breach of bylaws, that the council might have wanted to have knowledge of it.
Sure, and I'll look forward to your answer in this specific case on notice, but in general terms, does the AEC normally report violations of council bylaws to councils? That's not the AEC's role, is it?
No, it's not something that we would normally do. It's not something that we would ask our staff to actually do. So it'd be something that's probably been self-initiated if it has actually occurred.
I'd certainly hope not, because it could be a contravention of the implied freedom of political communication, right, which the AEC should be more familiar with than anyone.
Absolutely, and it's the sort of matter we'd want to stay out of.
Exactly.
So that's why, I mean, if it has occurred, it may well be just self-initiated, and it would be rare. I mean, normally our involvement in these sorts of things, as you would appreciate, is actually where one party's put up signage and then there's a dispute about positioning, size, unfairness, inequity, or signage being stolen or moved and those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I want to move on to Burandara Council now. And again, I've obtained documents from Burandara Council under FOI, and I will call this Extract 4 in relation to City of Burandara, which I'll provide to you now. The City of Burandara sent a letter to all the Kooyong candidates on the 1st of May, and they said, and I quote, "The Supreme Court was not asked to and did not make any findings about the validity of Council's administration of Clause 27 of its Amenity Local Law 2019, and it remains Council's position that Clause 27.1 of the local law is valid and effective for the purposes of the display of the electoral signage. It is also Council's position that all permits issued under Clause 27 of the local law to candidates' representatives for the display of A-frame signs at the early voting centre on 29 April remain valid." That means, in Council's view, that this is something they can do at the next election as well, and they'll continue to confiscate candidates' signs despite a court injunction which prevented them from doing so. How is this consistent with the implied freedom of political communication that councils take it upon themselves just to remove signage of political party candidates, even when there's court injunctions?
Well, I mean, my recollection, Senator, is the Supreme Court of Victoria found that it wasn't.
Wasn't what, sorry?
That it wasn't consistent with the implied freedom of political communication.
That's right. They granted the Liberal Party's injunction, which required Burandara to return the signage to Liberal candidates. Right. But you can see that this letter from City of Burandara is actually after that injunction, right, and they're saying that their law is still valid. So I think the reason why I'm raising this is I think we have an ongoing policy issue here, which is councils who have no constitutional authority to restrict the implied freedom of political communication are taking it upon themselves to restrict political party candidates being able to communicate with voters at a booth.
Now, I'm just going to intervene right here and just sort of say, do you have a great deal more? We're supposed to take a break?
Maybe 5 minutes on this issue, maybe slightly less.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
Senator, as I indicated, I think broadly you're correct that there are from time to time some challenges between the interface of Commonwealth electoral laws, the implied freedom of political communication under the Constitution, and local government bylaws. We do come across this from time to time, and there is, I think, more work to be done with respect to that, including some broader awareness by local government councils about how that interface is to occur, and I would have thought that the injunction issued by the Victorian Supreme Court would be instructive.
I would have thought so too, and just to put some more colour around Burandara Council in particular, at one point during this dispute they said that each political party would be allowed to have, I think, 2 A-frames only or potentially 1 A-frame only. But either way, this was a booth at which voters from a range of seats were coming to vote.
Yes.
And so the Liberal Party's Kooyong candidate might have been able to have a frame informing voters of their options, but the Chisholm candidate wasn't, and the Menzies candidate wasn't, and the Melbourne candidate wasn't, let alone Senate candidates who might have, which have been represented at the polling booth. And that's clearly an absurd attempt to restrict political communication, isn't it?
Well, you know, I think there might also be there, Senator, and I stand to be corrected here, but there might also be some confusion with the state electoral laws in Victoria around the amount of campaign signs and campaigners that are available that ought to be outside the front of polling places. So I think that's also another factor here.
I agree. I think there's no question people do get confused between those. I think particularly problematic for the Burandara Council is it's a teal-controlled council. The Mayor, Sophie Tawney, is an associate of the local member, Monique Ryan, and it was teal candidates who first complained about this, and it was a teal council which then sought to take away the political signage of their opponents. What options are available to the Parliament to ensure that that kind of attempted interference in the electoral process doesn't happen at the next election?
Well, Senator, I'm not an expert on the Constitution, but I think none. Because I think there was supposed to be a referendum with respect to that in 2013 under Prime Minister Rudd, which didn't proceed.
Yes, in terms of the constitutional authority of local governments, yes, they have none.
Yes. So I think from a legislative perspective, none. I think the best avenue here is education and awareness. Now, I'm not a constitutional expert, but I'm happy to be corrected.
No. It doesn't look like Mr Mill wants to correct you.
No.
How about just, and this is where I'll end it.
I do feel
Chair.
like this issue is going to get some further attention through JSCAM as well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And just a final question, Chair, and then I'm done for the AEC. What about AEC practice and education? What can you do, either in your contracts with councils or venues, to make it clear that they have no role in restricting political communication?
We will have a look at that, Senator. There may well be a clause in the contract, but there might also just be a fact sheet and awareness that we can provide as when we hand out contracts with respect to implied freedom of political communication and election signage.
Thank you. I'll look forward to your other answers on notice. Appreciate it.
Thank you.